Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're talking about 8.5, which is percents and just what a percent is. I know we've talked about it a little bit. You guys just finished your investigations on what it is. So a lot of this will be review, but nonetheless, we need to go over it. So looking at our first slide here, a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. And we talked about how the word percent literally means per 100 or out of 100. And we need to make sure that we recognize this symbol right here as a percent symbol. So if we look over here, we've got 100 marbles shown, and 43 of them are blue. So we can represent this using a percent, saying 43% because it's out of 100. We can represent it as a decimal because 43 out of 100 is 0.43 or 43 hundredths, or as a fraction, 43 over 100. And we need to see this relationship between these three forms, a percent, a decimal, and a fraction. So let's keep going. In the diagram above, 7 out of the 100 marbles are red. So we have 7 of them here. Can we write that as a percent? What would that be? If we know 7 out of 100, that should be 7%. And don't forget to put that little percent sign, otherwise it's just a 7. What would our decimal be? 7 out of 100. That would be 0.07, right? 7 hundredths. We need to make sure we get over to that hundredths place. And then as a fraction, it would simply be 7 over 100. And it's a prime number, so we can't simplify it. Otherwise, I would tell you to go ahead and simplify. So let's keep going. How about this? Write it as a percent. What would this one be if we were to write it as a percent? 9 over 100, 9 out of 100. Once it's out of 100, we know that it's already ready for percent mode. So 9% would be written like this. How about here? How could we write this one as a percent? We would say it's 39 hundredths. It's already in the hundreds place, so we know that it's just plain old 39%. And how about here? 32.5 over 100. It doesn't matter that we have a decimal up here. What matters is this is 100. When this is 100, the top number is simply our percent. So 32.5%. Good job. Let's keep going. So we can look here. These are just the answers that we just went through. Write the ratio as a percent, a decimal, and a fraction, or write the number as a percent. So if we have 29 to 100, this is our ratio. So how would I write that as a percent? 29 to 100 is just 29%. As a fraction, it would be 29 over 100. And as a decimal, it's going to be 0.29. That was a nice easy one. Here's another nice easy one. So let's skip over to this one. How about here? I have 3 place values here, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So how does this quite work out? Well, we need to know at the hundredths is where we quit. So it's going to be 32.5%, just like we had on the last one. Our decimal is going to be, we already have a decimal, sorry. And our fraction then is going to be 325 over 1,000. Wow, because we have 3 place values. So I know I can simplify this. If I divide them both by 5, I'm going to go ahead and get 325 divided by 5 leaves me with 65. And 1,000 divided by 5 gives me 200. Well, they both end in a 5 or a 0, so I know I can divide them by 5 again. So I'm going to go ahead and divide them by 5. And when I do that, 65 divided by 5 leaves me with 13. And 200 divided by 5 is going to leave me with 40. Now 13 I know is a prime number, so this is as low as I can go. So that's it. That's my decimal, or my decimal is up here, my percent, and my fraction. Here's another tricky one. How do you think we're going to do this? 5 over 1. Well, I know as a number it's just plain 5. That's my decimal. I already have a fraction. I need to figure out a percent. How do I get this to 100? How do I get the bottom to equal 100? I'm going to multiply times 100. So bottom and top times 100 gives me 500 over 100, which equals 500%. That was kind of a tricky one, but hopefully you wrote these down because you're going to see similar problems to this in your homework. So let's keep moving on. We need to know how to change a percent to a decimal. When we want to change a percent to a decimal, here's what we need to do, and you need to write this down. We've got a few things that you have to write down here because you're going to want to be able to look back at it. The first thing we're going to do is drop the percent symbol, and then think of that Beyonce song, Irreplaceable. I know it's kind of an old song, but nonetheless, here's a little. All right, so think of that. Beyonce is helping us change it from a percent to a decimal. So drop the percent symbol and move the decimal 2 spots to the left. That's why we think of this song, because she does it in 2s. So if we have 35%, we're going to simply drop the percent sign, and 35 is a whole number, so our decimal's at the end. We want to go 1, 2 spots to the left. 0.35 is our decimal. 35% is, oops, my percent sign is equal to 0.35. All right, let's keep going. What about changing a decimal to a percent? We're just going to do the opposite. So if we had 0.175, we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. 1, 2, and then add a percent sign. So we're going to make 0.175 is equal to 17.5%. So those are exact opposites. Again, you should write this down. Make sure that you get these headings in here and leave some space in between them. This one is changing a decimal to a percent. The one before was changing a percent to a decimal. How about writing a percent as a fraction? So again, you need to write this down. Make sure you get the heading down so you know the differences between them. If we had 12%, the first thing we're going to do is drop that percent symbol. So we want to get rid of it. And then put the decimal, or the percent, I mean, over 100. And then simplify. We've got 12 over 100. We can divide both top and bottom by 4. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. 100 divided by 4 equals 25. I think that's as low as we can go. So we know that 12% is the same thing as 3 over 25. All right. Set up a proportion setting the fraction equal to 100 is how we change a fraction to a percent. So if I had 3/5, I want to change it to a percent. The easiest thing for me to do is to set it up like this. And then whatever x is, that's what my percent is. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 100 and get 300. And then I'm going to take 300 and divide it by 5. So I'm multiplying the diagonal, dividing it by the last number that we haven't yet used, and we get 60. X equals 60. Therefore, it is 60% is what 3/5 is equal to. All right. So now I want you to go ahead and do this. What are our steps for taking the 64.5% and changing it to a decimal? That's the very first one we did. This is the one Beyonce helps us out with. We're going to drop the percent sign and move our decimal 2 places to the left. So 0.645 is our answer. So how about here? 80% is a fraction. Turn to your notes and find out what we did there. Again, we're dropping our percent sign, putting it over 100, And then simplifying, we can drop one set of zeros. So now we have 8/10. 8/10 can be cut in half, and we have 4/5 once we divide it by 2. And that's as far as we can go. 4/5 is our answer there. Good job. There we go. Look at our answers worked out perfect. Circle graphs is something else you need to do. We do a lot of circle graphs with percentages because the entire circle represents 100% of the data. And so we've got here in a survey 100 dog owners were asked where their dogs sleep. What percent of the people responded other? So this whole thing is 100%. There were 100 people surveyed, so whatever the percent of each section is, that's how many people it was, because we've got 100 dog owners. So we're looking at this section here for other. If we had 42, 30, and 18, basically we need to add it together. What do we get when we get 42, 30, and 18? 2 plus 8 is 10. 4 plus 3 is 7. 8, 9. So 90 people represents this part, 90%. So what's left? It should have been 10 people, which is the same thing as 10%. So what percent of the people did not respond dog bed? So everything but this section, which if we take 100 and subtract 18, we get 82% of the people said their dogs do not sleep in a dog bed. So here we go, 82%, 10%. You can see if you need more, you can pause and read this a little bit more. But here's the last part. I want you to do these 5 problems for tomorrow, and we'll check them when we get to school. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.